Hey Sainers. Hope you're having a great week so far. I know I am. Wait for a few more to tune in. The teams just came out. I'm doing it a bit earlier tonight. Just got a commitment later tonight, so unfortunately can't do it at 7 o'clock. So apologies if this clashes with your plans, but it will be up on YouTube afterwards, so you can catch up on that then. G'day Trent, mate. How you going? Hey Luke. Yep, that's the big news. Flynn, he's just spotted it. Good that Marshall isn't out. So that already tells you what the team is for tomorrow, unchanged. So that's the big news. That's the best part of tonight so far, is knowing that Zach Jones and Rowan Marshall have pulled up okay. They trained today. They did the captain's run. Supposedly we're on light duties, but we got through it. Rat said that unless something happens overnight, they're both going to play. Paul Hunter, I think, is an emergency just as a precaution, but I'm tipping that we're going in unchanged. And that's the most exciting thing about tomorrow, apart from the game itself, is the same team that delivered that second half is the same team that's going to be running out tomorrow night to take on the reigning premiers, the team that's dominated the competition over the last 3 or 4 years. So super exciting. Quick shout out, and I think, yep, you've just spotted it there, Ben. Jake Carlisle, Jake the Snake, playing his 150th game. So good on you, Jake. Great to have him back. He was in great form last week. A really good ruckman in the end, isn't he, guys? Like, that's something that I was kind of skeptical about when I heard about it. I'm like, yeah, he's tall, but that doesn't mean he can tap and he can be a decent ruck. But the fact that he would have gotten a lot of confidence playing on Nat Nui last week and actually doing a good job. So this week, it looks like it's going to be primarily Nankervis versus Marshall. I'm tipping that we're going to rest Marshall forward. There's no way he plays a full game in the ruck with his foot. So I can see some flexibility there. Depending on how the game's going, Jake Carlisle could go into the ruck, or maybe even Josh Battle. I think Battle's named in the forward line, but I did like him in the back line. I liked him last week, but when you flash back to the Richmond final last year and what kind of did it for us, it was the lack of tall defenders, and that's when Jake Carlisle had his third child. He had to fly back to Melbourne and do all of that, and that was heavily talked about in the media for good reasons and bad reasons. But he's back now, so it makes sense to play him in the back line. I would assume that he would take Tom Lynch, someone that isn't as mobile, really just leads the ball, and then Dougal Howard can sit on Jake Carlisle and not Jake Carlisle, Jack Rewalt, and take care of him there. While I think maybe Cal Wilkie will take the third tall, whoever that might be. Could well be someone like maybe even a Castagna. Could take the small, but if Dusty Martin rests there, which is where he's named right now at full forward, that's the Cal Wilkie specialty. He did a great job on him last year in the final. He did a great job when we beat them last year in round 4 or 5. Similar time in the season last year. So yeah, going into this, I'm not feeling confident, but I'm feeling excited. I think that we can really, if we can play with that pressure that we played with in the second half. And I know all of us have watched that replay at least 4 or 5 times. If you haven't watched the replay more than twice, then you're doing it wrong. You need to go and watch it right now. And fun fact, on YouTube, there's a Triple M commentary, which is a lot better than the Fox Footy one. So I recommend that if you want to rewatch the replay with that commentary over the top. But we match up on Richmond pretty well. I always like going into the trenches and going to opposition threads on Big Footy and hearing about what they think and how they think they're travelling and what they need to do to stop us. It's always good, it's fun for me to just talk about from a Saints point of view what we can do, but I'm always interested in what the opposition think of us. And they weren't confident. They, from what I read, were pretty worried about our speed. And I mean, that's a common thing with a lot of teams that face us. But they don't like the fact that they're playing at Marvel. They think that they don't play very well there. They play pretty much a decent amount of, good footy pretty much anywhere they play because they're Richmond right now, so they're the best team. But they're not confident. They think that we can get them on the outside, and if we can kind of control Dusty, particularly when he goes forward, I know that maybe someone like a Seb Ross might tag him when he's in the middle, but when he pushes forward, it'll be someone like Cal Wilkie, and then Jimmy Webster can take another small that's there and help out as well. But they think, the outside, if they don't win that battle on the inside, and we do what we did against West Coast, which was really, we had dedicated inside mids. We had Steele, Crouch, and Jones kind of going for the inside ball. And then we had players like McKenzie, Billings, Hill, even Sinclair, these sort of guys on the outside. And that was the first time this year, the first time in a while, where I've seen that we've had dedicated players going for the ball, not everyone going for the ball, and we had players on the outside waiting, backing the player to get the ball. And that's another one that I think Mike was just mentioned, Jack Bytel. He's another one, but he seemingly can do both. He can go and get his own ball, but he can break away from a pack with pace. So he's one of those rare players that has that. I think he could be like a Jack Steele, that two-way running. He can be defensive and he can be offensive and damaging, which he proved kicking that ball to Max King on the lead on Saturday. So I think we've got all the makings of a really good shout tomorrow night. It's going to be exciting. Maddie's match 6. Got tickets, top level, beautiful seats. You just love these games. Thursday prime time, we're taking on the reigning premier. We're the underdogs, so it wouldn't be, a lot of people wouldn't be surprised to see Richmond win. But if we stand up and we compete and we do what we did against West Coast, we're gonna scare them. We are gonna scare them. That pressure last week was the best pressure that I've seen from a team in a long time. So if we can do that against Richmond, it could cause some problems. They're not used to that heat, and they had a big game against Port. It was one of the best games of the season. High pressure football, felt like a grand final. They were playing interstate. They had the extra day rest, but that could take it out of them as well. A lot of people think that our second half might take it out of us, but I think now you're in rounds 4, 5, and 6. You're getting to your full match fitness. It's not going to be like round 1 where we had a slog and in the next week you're dead and you can't run. So I think that we've recovered well. Clearly, no one else was even close to being rested. I thought maybe a Jack Loney might have missed at the expense of maybe a Dunstan or something, an extra mid to help out with the great Richmond midfield that they've got. But we've backed in the same team, and that's exciting, and that's exactly what we wanted in the end. We didn't want any forced changes with Marshall and Jones. We didn't get that, and we're backing in players like Clark and Caulfield, who didn't have the best game last week. And even Joycey mentioned on the podcast that he thought maybe they might have been a bit sick. There might have been something wrong, and I think they live together, so that might make sense. There could have been a bug going around in that house, but I love that we're giving them that chance again. And no one after that effort deserved to be dropped. Realistically, against West Coast, 53-point turnaround. If everyone's fit, you play that team every week, So I know Richmond have made a couple of changes. They've brought in Rioli. They wanted a bit more outside speed, and that's what their fans were talking about in the thread. They wanted Rioli back for that purpose, more pressure. And then McIntosh, who's kind of just a workhorse and does a bit of everything for them. Ross, Caddy omitted, which is good because Caddy always seems to have decent games against us. And Will Martin omitted as well. So for us, no change. For them, a couple, but both teams in pretty good form, after last week. Richmond played a very good game against Port. Could have won it. We, obviously, our pressure was great the whole game, but in that second half went to a whole new level, and that broke West Coast. So hopefully if we do that again, we can hopefully break the best pressure team in the competition over the last 4 or 5 years. So that's the exciting part, and that's kind of where I'm at with the preview. I'm going to go all the way back to the top, and we'll go through some of these comments. This is from Ricky. Will Long be a medical sub? Look, I don't know. I don't think he will be. I think that if they're a bit worried about Marshall, that it makes sense maybe Paul Hunter would be the medical sub. But the downside to that is Ben Long offers versatility. So if you need someone in defense to bring on, if you need someone in attack or even just some hard nut in the middle, bringing on someone like Ben Long gives you that versatility. Whereas with Paul Hunter, if you bring him on, it's really only one purpose. And what if Marshall's not the player to go down, but someone else goes down and you're forced to bring on another player, and it's Paul Hunter? We're going to be too top heavy, and it's going to be exposed because Richmond are going to play the ball on the ground, play fast, their kind of surge football mentality, and that I think would hurt us big time. So I think I'm leaning towards Ben Long, but just with the Rowan Marshall thing, I think probably Paul Hunter. Highmore, that's from Phil. Yeah, I know. I thought maybe Caulfield, if his form doesn't pick up in the next month, I dare say that Highmore could get a go. But right now, after last year and, he's been a bit off Caulfield and Clark as well this year. I like that Rats is back in the min, and we backed in a lot of players last week to respond, and we got that from the majority of the team. So I love that he's going to do that with Caulfield and Clark and these players that haven't quite hit their straps. But geez, if they pick up as well as the rest of the team, everyone's going to be back in form all of a sudden. That's going to be very exciting for us and very hard for the opposition to contain. We need Jack still to have a big game. That's from James. We do, but we also need support. Last week, he had a massive game, but if you look at the midfield numbers overall, Billings, Jones, Crouch, Mackenzie, Bytel, Ross, everyone that went through the wings in the midfield had a great game. Not one person struggled. Maybe Clark, but he played off half-back a little bit. Everyone else in the middle beat their direct opponent in the second half, and that is exactly why we brought back that margin from 33 points, and that's why we ran away with it and won by 20 points in the end. So if they can show that same aggression, but also, that outside run, that support, and it was just the little things. Like I watched the replay a few times over the last couple of days, and it was just things that we hadn't done since round one. There was a passage where the ball was on the wing and Steele ran past the ball, shepherded a West Coast bloke because he knew that Clark was on the outside and was going to pick it up and run through. And Steele, our form from the previous 2 weeks, Steele would have just gone for the same ball as Clark because it would have been mine, and not team focused, and that would have stuffed up the whole play. But he puts the shepherd on, Clark gets the kick away in space, and we rebound. So that's the sort of stuff that we've slowly gotten back into our game, and hopefully it's that sort of thing that we don't have to actively think about doing. It's just stuff that comes naturally now. That's the DNA that we want from St Kilda. That's exactly the type of game plan we want to see every week. We don't want it to just be, that was a special win because we copped a lot of shit because of the Essendon loss and the Melbourne loss. We want that to be the benchmark, don't we? We don't want it to be a one-off. Too many of these wins previously have been one-offs. You look at 2017, we smashed Richmond, and then there was a big build-up the next week against Essendon, and we got done. We need to follow this up. We need to back this up. Because then we've got Port. So if you put in a great performance against West Coast, get the win, you put in something close to that against Richmond, you're going to go into the Port Adelaide game with a lot of confidence, and then the fixture opens up. And then you've got Hawthorn, Gold Coast, and it gets a bit easier from there. So big couple of weeks for us, but perfect time for everyone to be finding form, that's for sure. Shane said, put the pressure on from start to finish, boys. Play with heart, do it for Maddie. Very good call. That reminds me, in the last 2 weeks, we've conceded the first 3 goals of the game within the 6 to 7 minute mark. It was quick, bang, bang, bang goals. We're 19 points, 18 points down, and we're chasing. We do not want to do that against Richmond. We need to get off to a good start. I'd love to be able to start fast and win a first quarter. Last week, we conceded the first 3, but then we kicked the next 4. But then we conceded 2 junk time goals late in the game in the first quarter, and it put us down by a couple. So GWS got the jump on us by 2 goals. I think we've actually conceded the first 2 goals at least in every single game this year. So it's a big challenge for us to come out against Richmond, who are wanting to do the same thing. They've lost 2 in a row. That doesn't happen often. I think it happened maybe in 2019 the last time. And we know what happened in 2019. So they're going to come out tough. But I want them to come out tough. You don't want to just beat a shitty Richmond team. I want Richmond to bring their best because I want to see if our best can be good enough to beat that. And if it is, the boys are going to get a lot more confidence than what they did against West Coast. Gale says Tigers will be looking for a win. They will come out hard. Saints need to be prepared for that. Go Saints. That's the great thing about having a tough game with West Coast, a tough game with Richmond, and then Port. If you go from playing West Coast and then, no offense, you've got North the next week. There could be just a natural drop in mentality and aggression and in focus. But with going from West Coast to then upping it to Richmond, your focus has to be on par with what we delivered in the second half or more. And then when you go to Port, the same thing, on par with the previous 2 weeks or more. If we do that, we're in every single game we play this season. But we need to do it consistently. That's the key word. I hate using it, but it's just true. We haven't been consistent enough. This is a time to prove it. Thursday, everyone's watching. Perfect time for us to announce ourselves to the competition. Keep Dougal on Rewalt and should make it hard for him to mark. That's Matthew. Yep. And I would love to see Dougal Howard put a knee through Tom Lynch's head after last year, if you all remember. It was Tom Lynch who should have missed the prelim and put a knee in Dougal's head. And that same game, Trent Cotchin almost breaking Zachy Jones's back, and that was in the first or second quarter as well. So I'd love to see Jack Steele smash Cotchin at the opening bounce, or just tackle the shit out of him. Cotchin's got a big head now. He copped it when they weren't winning flags and no one rated him. Suddenly they win flags and he's a champion captain, and we overlook all the snipering that he does. That's what he is. He's a genuine sniper, but he gets away with it because he's captain of the best team in the comp. So I want someone to really smash him. I'd love Bytel to do a fend off on Dusty. That would be sick. Stuff like that gets the crowd going. And that's another thing. The crowd the other night was massive. Tomorrow it's going to be even bigger. So the Saints fans need to be vocal. Richmond fans are always loud. We need to top that and let our boys know that we're there. Because I think Hunter Clark said it on radio a couple of days ago that the crowd really spurred the team on. It got everyone going, got the energy going in the ground. And we could all feel it. The second Butler kicked that first goal, McKenzie, then another one from Butler. It just built and everyone was kind of getting up in their seats. You could feel the energy in the ground. We need that against Richmond. They don't like having it against them. They want everything to be their way. They would want nothing more than for us to just let them kick the first 4 goals. They get up and about. We go into our shells and they get to party all night for the 4 quarters and get the win. But I want us to get in their faces. Do what they did to us last year in the final. Be physical, piss them off, show them we're not afraid of them, and then go for it. That's all we need to do. This one's from Bem. Notice Seb Ross didn't play any mid-centre bounces. Thoughts? Didn't mind that. I think it'll change this week, depending on if Dusty spends more time forward or in the middle. But I dare say that Seb Ross will go for Dusty. Ratton came out today and said that we are likely to play a run with roll on him. I don't know who else would be capable of doing it, whether Bytel has the tank. He's got the size to take him on. But Seb Ross did it to Lachie Neale last year. I think he tried to do it on Dusty in the final and did it to pretty decent effect up until the last quarter where Dusty kicked the match-winning goal. But that's in the forward line. That's not where Seb follows him. I think that Seb's probably the go-to to start, and then we'll just see how the game takes off from there, and then we can make changes depending on if he's getting on top of him or not. Wouldn't mind another Max King bag. That's from Jared. Mate, I would love nothing more than to see King kick 5 on Grimes. I think that the West Coast defense, to me, on paper, seems more tough and sturdier than the Richmond defense. They're great. West Coast have got really great individual players, whereas Richmond have got pretty good, decent. They've got Grimes and Bolter plays there a little bit as well. But they play better as a team than individually. So if we can isolate King with Grimes or whoever's on him, isolate Membry, we've got the ability to rest Marshall there now, which we couldn't do, in other games this year because he wasn't playing. It gives us a lot more height. You throw in Battle as well. Even Jakey Carlisle, depending on how we're going in defence, we could throw him forward. So there's plenty of possibilities there in the air, and that only is a good thing for our smalls. Finally, last week, our smalls woke up. They started crumbing. Butler kicked a goal. Loney missed a few, but got enough of the ball to have a chance. Higgins kicked a sealer at the end. Billings kicked a couple. The smalls got going, and that's great for us because you think that if we win this game, the smalls need to have a big say on the scoreboard. So if they can all bob up for a goal or two, that goes a long way to us winning this game. Stu says, Tigers leaving out the kids for experience shows they're taking us seriously, taking this seriously, so they should. They're 2-2. They don't want to go 2-3 because they've got a tough run. I think they've got Geelong, Melbourne, Bulldogs. They've got some tough teams coming up, tough games. So they need to get some wins in the bank. But like Richmond every other year, they don't stress about it now. They are pretty much in cruise control and will focus on the middle to late part of the year to really find form. So hopefully they don't find form tomorrow and we can get the win. James says, I want us aggressive from the bounce onwards. Matthew says, need to kick the first goal. We never do it and it kills us in the long run. Definitely Seb Ross to tag Dusty. That's from Adrian. We need a full 4 quarters of pressure on the Tigers. That's the funny thing. They came out of the blocks last year in the final. They played really good for pretty much 3 quarters of the game. We had the better in the fourth, and I think we got it back to at least 14 or 15 points in that fourth term when Seb Ross kicked a goal. And then they ended up winning by about 30 points. But overall, it just, we didn't play well. I think John O'Marsh, no offense, played in that game. Dean Kent played in that game. Shane Savage played in that game. We were missing Paddy Ryder. We were missing Jake Carlisle. We didn't have Crouch. We didn't have Higgins. We were missing a lot of players. The team is a lot stronger now. So I don't see why we don't go into this game with a bit of confidence. Just a bit of quiet confidence. All right, we're not going to say anything. Even the fans, we can all go in there thinking, okay, if we bring what we did last week, they're going to have to play well to beat us. And that's what I want. If we lose, I want it to be because Richmond went to another level, because we pushed them to another level. And I'd love to see them push us to another level. I want this to be a top 4, top 6 sort of match. I don't want this to be David versus Goliath. I don't want this to be us being the underdogs and we're chasing all day from behind. I want us to go into this thinking we are good enough. Let's do it. Ben says, when we're favourites, it's like the boys can't deal with the expectations. When we're underdogs, they play freely and play with dare. Feel like we will match it to them. Go Saints. Looks good, but Marshall and Jones may not play. That's from Barry. I doubt that. We're not going to make 2 changes. If anything, it might be a late change, but I'm confident that they're both going to play. If they weren't going to play, I feel like we would have just made those changes and announced them. Brenton says, played to any warehouse Saints performed last week versus West Coast after halftime. We might just trouble Richmond with our very good press in the second half. It was excellent last week. 2 huge weeks for us. That's from Adrian. Crouch could tag Dusty. He smashed it with 14 tackles last week. Runs his guts out and pressured hard. That's from Matthew. That's true, but he's such a good clearance player for us that I feel like if we have to make him focus on Dusty, that we lose that part of the game, and that means that Steele's going to have to really carry that, whereas with Seb, we don't rely on Seb for clearances. We don't rely on him for really drive. He can really just focus on a player and take him out of the game, which allows Crouch, Steele, Jones to focus on getting the footy and getting it forward. But fair, if it doesn't work on Seb, obviously we've got Crouch, maybe Bytel, and we can trial a few things and see where it falls. We can do it. That's from Donna. Like this comment if you're going. I'll just like it right now. There you go. Could DMAC also follow Dusty? Maybe in the middle, just to harass him. DMAC was very physical last week, but he was great on the outside. Dusty's going to pull him into the inside. We need to keep DMAC, Billings, Brad Hill. We need to keep these guys on the outside so that when the inside mids get the ball, they've got somewhere to go. If DMAC's following Dusty, then they've got nowhere to go. And DMAC allows Billings to go into the forward line more. So if we take that away from our game, Billings has to go to the wing. We lose that. The 2 goals that he kicked last week were crucial for us, but he still had over 20 possessions, and that was primarily from half forward pocket. Billings didn't need to stay on the wing and find the ball. The ball came to him. So I think he's more damaging as a half forward flank as opposed to a wing. So I'd prefer to stick with Seb Ross for now. I don't think we need to consider DMAC just yet. Imagine Loney knocking out Tom Lynch. It's from James. That would be absurd. I don't know if that's even possible. But that would be a massive tackle from Jack Loney if he could do that. Christine says Cochin is sneaky shit, deserves to get smashed. Hopefully the boys do that tomorrow night, Christine. Are the green packets on our side this week? That's from Jack. Mate, I hope so. It was tough last week. I think it was, in the end, the free kick count. It always ends up being pretty even by the end, but halfway through the second quarter, it was like 15-6 or something, and everything was just going West Coast's way. But if we just get to the footy first, we will start getting free kicks. We swung it in our way in the second half because we were first to the footy. If you're not first to the footy, you're going to give away free kicks. And the good thing is we have players in the ruck now that are competent, and they're not going to give away free kicks. You look at rounds 2 and 3 with, no offense, but McKernan, Hunter, these sort of guys in the ruck, they just kept giving away free kicks. They couldn't do it. They didn't have the craft. Carlisle's been training this year with not with the fact that he knew he was going to play a bit of ruck with the injuries we had, so he's had time to prep. And then Marshall's obviously, one of the best rucks in the comp when he's up and about. So that's good for us. Scotty says, if we finish strong like we did against the Eagles, make sure we aren't predictable going into our forward line. We'll get the job done. What else we got? Thanks for all the comments again, guys. This is from Jared. Do you reckon the boys listen to your podcast? Because that stuff is great content. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate that, mate. I don't know. It would be funny if anyone did, if anyone could find out, but I highly doubt it. They've got enough to focus on as it is during the week. I don't see where they could sit down for an hour and listen. And if they're going to stay away from footy and listen to a podcast, I'm pretty sure it would be non-footy related. You know, they need to break it up. If I was a football player, a professional football player, you would need to kind of find a way to get away from that and to not really consume yourself, especially if it's like us, we're critiquing the player. You don't want to, overanalyze, because then that can confuse you, and you just focus on what the coaches are saying internally and just go with that. I might go with a couple more questions and then we might wrap it up, guys. What level are you sitting tomorrow? That's from Matt. Level 3, always level 3 if I can. I love the view. You get the full ground. Easy for me to analyze how we're setting up, and I like watching where we're going to go with the next kick and the kick after that. When you're on level 1, for me, you're watching the game, but you can't really see the space around. And it's easy to see if you kick a goal or not from top level. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've been doing that for years. So that's where I'll be. Hill needs to do more. He's great, but put the pedal down. Yep, he did it. He teases at it, doesn't he? Like last week when he kicked that amazing ball to Max King on the lead, he kind of went full throttle, but he didn't need to go fast to get away from that player. Tomorrow I want to see him get the ball, recognize, say, a Nan Curvis is on the mark, and know just to go. Because there's two factors there. The umpire needs to call for Nankervis to play on to run, or for the player on the mark to run. By the time the umpire reacts and does that, it's always a second or two late, and he'll be able to gain 10 metres on that player. So I want to see a lot more of that from Brad Hill. Take advantage of the man on the mark rule, because they can't just run off when you run off. They need to hesitate and wait for the ump. And if they don't, and they run off and it's not play on, you get 50 metres and big advantage there. So it's a big game tomorrow, guys. I'm going to leave it there. I've got some plans. Hopefully you enjoyed the preview. It'll be up on YouTube. If you haven't listened to the Saints TV podcast, episode 45 dropped last night. Thanks to everyone that's listened so far. But if you haven't, it's on there. We preview the game. We talk about the amazing win on the weekend against West Coast. Answer your questions as well. So thanks to everyone for submitting questions on that, and to sending stars as well. I've got over 1,000 stars again in the video. So awesome, guys. Thanks a lot. But yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll let you get back to your Wednesday nights. It's so cool knowing that it's Thursday, game day tomorrow, Maddie's match, Jay Carlisle's 150th. So hopefully there's a big crowd, you all turn up, and hopefully I see you at the game. But until then, guys, I'll see you tomorrow night for the live review after the game. Have a great night. Go Saints. See you guys.